when the red, red robin comes, bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes, bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes, bob, bob, bobbing along.
The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are reputable East Hull-based car specialists and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Robin Pod Weekly. Joining me this week is Robin Pod regular Scott Solway, and we have another debutant as Gary Lee joins us to discuss all things Hull KR. And of course, we have Steve Till join us for the Robins Revisited, and we answer all your questions in question time. But before then, Scott, was it a good Friday or was it a great Friday?
It was always going to be a great Friday. A great Friday beating that lot again, regardless of the situation of what happened, them going to 12 men. To go there 2 weeks after beating them in the Cup and to beat them again in the league made it a great Friday for me. A great Friday, all day long.
Gary, what about you? First time on the Robin Pod. Did you enjoy that victory?
I did, yes. I thought from a performance perspective and from a result perspective, I thought it was absolutely great, wasn't it? You know, we can discount the 20 minutes they had just after the second half started, but we dominated, didn't we? Really, and from watching it from the stands, we were quiet for about 10-15 minutes, but we didn't really. I don't think the result was ever in doubt, was it? It was just that little twitchy bum period after the second half started, you know. But for me, you know, I think people know I live 5 hours drive away, but for the 5 hours drive home was absolutely brilliant, you know.
Well, I'll tell you what, Gary, let's elaborate on that a bit more because it's great to have on the Robin Pod. Like I said, if anybody who's listening or watching this on YouTube ever wants to come on the Robin Pod, literally send me a message. That's what Gary's done. We've had people previously. Now we've got a good roster of supporters coming on. I'd always like to get greater female representation on. I'd love to have people from all walks of our support base on the Robin Pod. Gary, you reached out to me. So a 5-hour journey, up to Hull to watch Hull Kingston Rovers. So where are you based? And tell us what your love affair with the Robins.
Yeah, so it's like giving you CV, innit, to prove you're a proper supporter, I suppose. But yeah, I left Hull when I was 17, 1980s, you know, Thatcher's Britain. I joined the Navy and didn't really come back to Hull, but I've always been a Rovers supporter. I live in a little village in the New Forest called Brockenhurst. You know, really, you know, one of those really idyllic, quintessential villages. It's a bit like Brandzone, really, if you shut your eyes. But and I've just, you know, over the last, I left the Navy in 2000, so season ticket holder since then, really. And it's just, yeah, it's about 4.5 hours drive up, watch the game, and then 4.5 hours, 5 hours drive back. And it's for me, it's my time. It's great, you know. And I still get that, you know, I'm nearly 60 now, but I still feel like a 15-year-old when I go watch the game. It's absolutely brilliant, and I just like it for what it is. You know, it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so that's my game day usually. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Gary, I suppose results like the one on Good Friday make that journey all a bit more sweeter, regardless of how long it is. To go back with a W is ultimately the experience is great and you love coming, but, you know, the hard reality is, you know, we're at the point now with the Robins where victories are essential. They're not a luxury, are they? And again, on Friday, we was given a stern test. Let's be honest, it was similar to the Challenge Cup quarter-final. You know, all joking aside, you know, we love the banter on the Robin Pod, and I hate mentioning their name, but we can't deny that was a tough game of rugby league. Eventually, we came out on the right side of the result, but it was a tough game.
Yeah, it was. It's. Do you know what? I was a bit surprised. To be fair, I thought we were gonna. I thought when 𝗀𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗃 went over and then 𝗃𝗂𝗃 went over, I thought, Christ, this is it. It's just going to be same old, same old. I think you put on one of your reels, didn't you? We can bet a 40.
Don't remind me, Gary. Gary, don't mention that.
And I was like, yeah, I think this is going to be easy. And then when he went off, for that, the worst tackle of the season so far, I thought, Christ. But yeah, it was tough. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. What about you, Scott? Sorry, I've taken your. I should have used.
Carry on, Gary. I tell you what, mate. I'll go on mute, and you can carry on.
Sorry, mate. Go on.
Don't worry. No, I say what, Scott. You're on mute. That's why you're. But I tell you what, Scott. Just elaborating on what Gary said. If we go back to that Challenge Cup quarter-final game. That opening 20 minutes was like a knock-on a phone. It was penalties. And we started to see that in the first 10 minutes, didn't we? We saw a few penalties. We saw knock-ons, a few errors. Thankfully, though, Scott, the Robins were the first on the scoreboard in minute 9. And it was a fantastic try what we scored.
Oh, what a fantastic break back, Mikey, down that left-hand side, and to draw the man and put Gilly in. It's not sure it's a bit of pace as Gilly, is there? I mean, I know Tom Briscoe's looking on a bit now, but he's still no slouch. And Gilly had his heels there, didn't he, right into the corner. It was a great try, great draw of the man by Mikey to put Gilly away. I agree with Gary though. I mean, when a team goes to 12 men, sometimes you automatically think that there's going to be a lot of space on the field, and the team with 13 should go away and put the foot on the gas. Does it? Sometimes your game plan has to change as well because you're now playing 12, so you're not playing that thing. 13v13. I think we'll win more convincingly, as daft as that sounds, because then with 12 men. It gave them a boost up, didn't it? Give them a G up. They're all fighting for each other's, fighting for the mate again and stuff. But not with 13, but when you go to 12, you find that extra little, maybe 5-10% that you maybe won't need to find when you're 13v13. And I think that we'd have beaten more handsomely 13v13. I really do, as daft as it sounds, because we proved that in the first when them 2 tries up. With 𝗀𝗲𝗃𝗀𝗃 and then obviously 𝗃𝗂𝗃 score as well. And it just seemed to be we're getting into a rhythm, and then they lost Cust. And we seemed to go to pieces a little bit for a while until we got our stability again, I thought.
Yeah, Gary, I mean, let's just hone in on that red card because I'm staggered that, I'm not staggered because most people who think it want a red card are from a certain postcode west of the Riverol. But, I mean, it's hard to look at mitigation, isn't it? And look, like I think the thing is for me, Gary, is that yes, in the split second, Cust has got a tackle to make, but for me, it was almost the fact he didn't go to make the arms round him to wrap him up and make the tackle, and he almost, I think for me, it was like a wince. I think Cust was scared of getting hurt, so he turned his body into which made it worse for him because when you slowed it down on the replay, it just looked worse and worse. And I genuinely, and look, this is my opinion, I don't think Cust meant to hit Morg like he hit Morg, but at the same point, the player who's trying to make that defensive effort has a duty of care to the attacking player. And I think that's where, look, you might not like it, but that is the rule. That is the rule. And like, honestly, when you saw it on the video replay, when you got home and watched it again, you slowed it. It just looked worse and worse every time you saw it. I
mean, live, unfortunately, where we were stood or sat, the post was kind of in the way, so we didn't know. I didn't know what had gone on. I just saw a bit of a melee, and then the more you saw it on the big screen, even though it's not the best definition, but it just got worse and worse, didn't it? Yeah. And the
video refs replaying it. He's almost doing it to make a case to go, I can't do anything else but send him off.
And then when you get home and you watch it, you rush home and you watch it and you think to yourself, what mitigation is there. You can actually see him drop his left shoulder a little bit and kind of turn in. And you just think, I mean, whenever I'm on one of these forums and I'm talking to people, I always say, don't forget, hitting the head has been outlawed for years and years and years and years. You've never been allowed to tackle high, have you? Even when you're at school. But there's just more emphasis on that, isn't it? And it was the right decision. Whether the intent was there or not, or what, the fact is, isn't it? Is hit Morg in the head with his shoulder. How he's got to that situation, only Cust will know. But the decision was made, and for me, it was the right decision.
Yeah, and I think most sensible people will look at that and hey, look, if it was the other way around, I guarantee you the vast, probably 99.9% of supporters from a black and white persuasion would have been screaming for a red. So, I think it's a desert. Look, like you said, I don't think 𝗂𝗃𝗀𝗃 went out maliciously to make that tackle, but there's no duty care. There was no effort to wrap around and bring Morg to the floor. It was just that's why the rule was there, and that's why it's brought in. But like Scott has already alluded to, not only did it not affect them, it seemed to galvanise them, Scott. But it was a Robbins who took full advantage of that 4 minutes later when we went in for that fantastic try with the offload from Burgess to 𝗂𝗂𝗃. We created the overload. We hit him with pace, power, speed, something we didn't probably then capitalise on later on in the game when you thought, why are we not doing that now? But fantastic try from 𝗂𝗂𝗃, who I must say is, with my Rovers tinted spectacles on, just like you, Scott, is probably one, if not the best centres in Super League right now.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And there's a reason he's still getting picked for New Zealand as well, because they know he's probably one of the best centres in the world still. He's an outstanding centre in all aspects. He carries well out of your own area. He does a lot of, it takes a lot of work off the forwards. And in our own 10, after Davis has had a carry, then 𝗂𝗃𝗀𝗃 has a carry, so it takes a lot of pressure off the forwards trying to get out of our end. He's strong. He's got a great step. He's got a bit of pace. He's just an all-round top player. What I can't get my head around is how he ended up on that left side of the field for that try, though. Where did he go? Where did he go from? He'd gone from his right edge across to that left-hand side to get that ball from Burgess to score. I don't know how he ended up there or what he was doing there.
To be fair, Scott, because I wondered that, and I looked at it at the time and thought, did someone get injured and they had to swap centres? Or I think it was genuinely they created the overload. And don't forget, 𝗂𝗃𝗀𝗃's twice now gone into the halves. And obviously, in terms of a ball player, I think they fancy him to be able to slide that pass on. But also, don't forget as well, the fact that he's got that ability with the power he's got, it leaves defenders with a question mark over whether he's going to offload it, whether he's going to run it. And I think I think that's one of them training ground moves that we've not probably seen yet this season. But creating that extra player over there. Did it, because like you said, I was watching it especially on replay, going, actually, how did he end up over there? Like, why was he on the edge? What do you reckon, Gary?
Yeah, I for the first, go back to the first try quickly. The two guys sat in front of me, and they said, "What's Lewis doing over here?" Because Lewis was third man, wasn't he, in from the wing? And then we all kind of looked at each other and went, that's what he was doing over here, So that was a set move. And what I really liked about those two tries was Dean Hadley's input into them. He touched the ball. He touched the ball on for the first try, and he did a dummy run for the second try. So, and I was really when I watched it on the replays, I was kind of like, he's over there for a reason. That's why Dean Hadley's moved over to the left-hand side, just to be that foil. It was absolutely brilliant. I thought both tries were really well worked. Yeah.
And Scott, talking of tries, there's one try that particularly Willie Peters won't be happy with. We talked about Cust going off and how that galvanised. I think another interchange that helped them lot was Chamberlain going off from the second row and Ashworth coming on, because he suddenly became. He probably played his best game for them. I don't know. I don't watch them that much, but he played the best game for them that he's probably played, in my opinion. But when he got on the end of that kick, he just showed every pace, power. But what frustrated me, Scott, was the indecision in the Rovers' defence.
Yeah,
who was getting that ball?
We're favourites to win that. We've got two players favourites to win that before he gets anywhere near the ball. That's a defensive error from Rovers. Was it Morgan Davis coming together? Nobody made a decision.
Broadbent.
Sorry. I apologise. It was Broadbent. Yeah. Nobody took any responsibility. It's your ball. It's my ball. It's your ball. And he just come through the middle and took it and scored from it. It should never be scoring in that situation. It's a poor defensive read, poor defensive decision making. They should never have scored from that. They did, got them back in the game, but it was a Rovers error that they scored off, in my opinion. We should have cleaned that up easily, really.
Yeah, and I tell you what, Gary, I know it was Easter, but what a resurrection that was. Artemore coming back on. Who would have thought you'd have seen him back out on the pitch? Because everyone was expecting him to be done, dusted, and if he was, you couldn't have argued with it, could you? Because he took a hell of a clattering. Yeah. To see him back out on the pitch, not only back out on the pitch, then coming up with a try as well at the heart of their defence. That's what I like about Morgan, and I think that's why I can understand why Willie Peters and the club have made the effort to bring him in when they did, because he's I think he's still raw, but he's agile and he's fast. He's quick. He's ducking and diving. He's coming up with a play you don't expect. And that try at that time, nobody expected that to happen.
I mean, put Morg's try right. Put him in a Wigan shirt, and you'd think it was Bevan French, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and he'd be getting the plaudits, wouldn't he? He'd be like that, and it's all under the radar. Let alone the fact he's come on after having his head took off.
He's had his come on. And if you're an FC fan, you're accusing him of cheating now, aren't you? Because he's got the player's gone off red. Why has he failed his HIA, etc., and he's come on and he's come back on and he's scored that try. And if you watch it back, is it 6 players he's gone past, took 3 over the line with him, and still put the ball down for a guy who's not the size of Jared Warner-Hargreaves. He's done really well, hasn't he? He's done people with his feet, hasn't he?
He's got nimble feet. He's got nimble feet without a doubt. I mean, it was a fantastic try, and the way he got it down as well to ground the ball was fantastic. It really was. Yeah.
Yeah. As I tell you what, Scott, we go in at half time, 16-4. I'll admit I was going, this could be a whitewash now. This could be, because we've weathered a bit of a storm. We've got the try just before half time. And we've seen games at that place where Rovers have been on top at this point. We've seen what can happen. What was you thinking? Was you thinking the same?
Yeah, I think so. I think if we're being honest, every Rovers fan would have felt the same. Eventually, I think if we come out and score first, second half, that probably does happen. But the fact that we lacked a little bit of composure with the ball, we give a few penalties away here and there, we piggybacked them down the field a bit. It wasn't typical Rovers. I think they won the penalty count, FC, didn't they? I think they said their fans were saying that they were hard done by, but I think they won the penalty count quite easily from what I can make on. So, we lacked a bit of composure. If we score first, second half, I think that probably does the floodgates maybe do open a little bit. But the fact we give them a peg up back into the game, and I don't know what happened with Briscoe's try, but we just seemed to get our numbers wrong on the edges, didn't we? Considering it's 12v13, they seem to have an extra man than us, which was a little bit concerning. I don't know how they got that extra man on their right edge, but somehow they seemed to get it. And Briscoe scored in the corner, and you're thinking, how did that happen? But somehow it did. I just think we got our numbers wrong on that try, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Gary, we're going to come on to them try, because you're right, it is a concern. I'm sure Willie Pete's looking at. What didn't help, of course, was Davis going off a minute into the second half, and I think there is as much as we talk about Hull having a play taken off. Of course, the man advantage is such a big thing. I think people forget as well that we played that second half, without one of our first choice wingers, which is Davis, who actually so valuable with his meters made. The carry, I think he's our top carrier. He's top for meters made. So it's a massive loss to have him go off the pitch for that second half. Broadbent come on. I mean, ultimately, it shows the justification for having him on the bench.
Sorry, Scott. He's one of those. Broadbent's one of those players in it that just fits in anywhere in the back line there. You know, he just soaks it all up. You know, and he can fit in anywhere along the backs, can't he? Really. The tries. I don't know. I think, like Scott alluded to there, playing against 12 men sometimes, it can kind of put you in that false kind of sense of security, can't it? And you just kind of, we don't know what went on really. I think it's just a bit of a switch off for 15 minutes, you know. But I'm really glad we kind of gave the whole fans and the players a bit of a false sense of kind of celebration there, getting them just close enough and then coming back away from them again for the last 20 minutes. Yeah, I think it was in the script.
Well, the thing is, Gary, I mean, what you can't account for is, right, from pre-season, the whole thing with this side is about building partnerships. It's about, especially on the wing, your centre, your winger partnerships, you know, your props, when you spell them, they play together, you know, your halfbacks all play together. And there's no doubt that on Good Friday, there was a lot of disruption in terms of our wing and centre plays. And you can't underestimate what that led to. I mean, you had 𝗂𝗂𝗃 going on to the other edge, then 𝗵𝗂𝗏 was brought, you know, we had all kind of combinations where now we're just relying on player instinct, their instinct to the players, unless, don't get me wrong, and we're not privy to it, they have trained for this, but it's very hard to train for this kind of circumstance because you don't know who and when who's going to be missing. And I think that's where there's a little bit of, we talked about mitigating circumstances in terms of the red card, but I tell you what, mitigating circumstances in terms of the result or the scoreline because of some of the changes in the second half. And I think that's where Scott, them tries were born out of. They seem to come from the confusion that was created by a few players having to shift over to different positions and then trying to react to that. And to be fair, like I do think as well, Scott, you can't deny they put in like this sort of superhuman performance where they lifted themselves to the point where, Scott, I'll admit it, where when they went 2 behind, I thought there's only one team who's going to score the next try here, and it was not a team in red and white.
No, they were favourites to win it at that point. I don't really know what actually swung it back in our favour, really. You know, whether it was Asiatas hit on Lewis after he kicked the ball, I don't know. The sort of pigbacked us downfield a little bit more, didn't they, with a couple of penalties? But they were in the ascendancy there. I mean, you're right. I mean, 𝗂𝗂𝗃 went onto the wing when Bear just went off, didn't he? And 𝗵𝗂𝗏 went to centre on the other side. And it was an all shift of the entire backline, all being moved round. Once it Broadbent on the wing for Davis. And yeah, you can say you can just slot into these positions, but you've not trained for that. You've not trained in those positions for that game. And you could argue that the professional rugby league players, they just should slot in there. But it's not as easy as that, is it? It really isn't. We know it isn't. You know, and you've got to give credit to them, though. You know, they've fought and they played for the badge and, you know, they backed the mates up when they needed to, and they had heart and passion and desire. You know, it was a challenge for us. Luckily, we came out the end, and you know, quite convincingly in the end. You know, with the win really. But it was after 15 minutes of that second half, it was a lot closer than the game should have been. Really, shouldn't it? You know, I was panicking a bit. I actually sat down in my seat thinking, I can't watch this because you just had a feeling. The crowd were up for Monday as well, and you're thinking if they score next and they take the lead, we're in big bother here. But it's typical of 𝗀𝗂𝗽𝗍 in recent seasons. We found a way, didn't we? We found a way.
All joking aside, I think that you've just both alluded to there about those partnerships that get built up over the season. You know, Gildart's little taps onto Burgess. You know, they're trained for that and they know it instinctively, don't they? And 𝗂𝗂𝗃's little taps on and back passes, you know, reverse passes, round his back to Davis. You know, they're built up over training sessions, aren't they? They know instinctively, like you said, that the player's going to be on the end of them. And if you have to shift around, it puts that little bit of doubt in your mind, doesn't it? You know, shall I tip it on or shall I just go for a little bit of a spurt? But I think we did really well, actually, to weather the storm. I think, like you say, Scott, if FC scored the next try when they were 2 behind, you know, I think we would have been in for a really tense final 10 minutes, wouldn't we?
Yeah, but I think, Gary, like I think I've talked about, you can't train for sometimes match scenarios where players are missing. But I tell you what Willie Peters got into then is when you have to dig in. You dig in and you keep going and you keep going at 100% because you don't know when your opportunity will come. It wasn't pretty at 16-14, but then players will have been trained into them. You do not stop. You do not feel sorry for yourself. You keep going. You keep going. And ultimately, that's what we then saw with the Bachelor try, where the Robins just kept the ball alive. They believed that they could do it. I mean, it's one of the most, well, not one of the most fortunate, but the way that the ball came about, and you had Tyrone May playing netball passes. He was playing he's playing an American football pass. It bounced back to him. Bachelor, he then became like a running centre where he was just diving. But that's what you train the players to do, innit? So when you're in them moments, you just play and you play. And I think sometimes we underestimate. It's a hard skill to put into people, how you create desire and you create want and you create that ability to take the moment. And I think that's what if you go probably back, and this is just me just thinking, going all the way back to pre-season, all the times that Willie Peters had these sort of core group of players, it's because of moments like we saw against Hull FC. That's where it comes from. The train's not to be fit and to be in partnerships. The train to be resilient. And
it's great to see, isn't it? As a supporter, we've been on this journey, haven't we, over the last 15 years, where the Rovers of 10, 8, 7 years ago would have maybe not have had that resilience. You know, maybe they've pulled it out for the derby. But they're the kind of games we would have lost, you know. I thought it was. I like Suasosu's pass back. You know, once it touched the FC player's arm, and he patted it back, and he was nearly on the end of the try as well. He was stood right just to the left of Bachelor as he went over the line, calling for the ball. I thought it was a great try. Yeah.
I think in the last 10, 15 minutes, all were starting to get gassed a bit, though, weren't they? I think we had pulled them about a little bit. We've got a foothold back in the game, and I think all put so much into the battle that I think they were starting to get gassed a bit. I mean, when the ball went to Bachelor, he had another 2 players on his right he could have gone to. There was like a 3-man overlap, but he came inside and scored himself. I think all were pretty gassed by then, I think.
Yeah, and then I think the key to it, the result, Scott, was following it up almost immediately after with another try. From that kind of situation, it was probably not the play you'd expect to be then going and scoring the try. High kick up from Lewis. I think Briscoe made a meal of it, didn't he? But he saw Jar-Hargreaves acrobatically put it down. It had to be him, didn't it, to score a try like that? He's been, the man of the moment. People didn't even realise that actually he'd already played so many games for Rovers this season. I actually thought it was debut because the disrespect that's flying his way and people are not understanding the role that he plays for the Robins is crazy. But I tell you what, Scott, I'm glad he was a player who scored that try in the way that he did.
Well, I mean, I've never. It was just like a swan dive, wasn't it? I think Briscoe's feet are up in the air, so he's got to make his way over Briscoe's legs. I think Briscoe's legs somehow, but it was like an absolute swan dive. It was like a dolphin flying out the water, wasn't it? And the way he grounded the ball as well, with a big smile on his face. It was right in front of us as well. We was absolutely dead in line with him where he scored, and when he got up with that big cheesy grin on his face, it was like, "What's Jared doing there? How's he ended up in that position?"
I bet he couldn't believe it. I genuinely think he couldn't believe that he'd done what he'd just done, but he did.
Yeah, he did. Well, what are you doing there, Jared? But he just pops up, and I mean, it wasn't just a case of him bulldozing over. It was the flamboyant swan from a massive bloke of like 18 stone. You know what I mean? It's crazy, wasn't it? And the way he grounded the ball as well with a massive smile on his face, I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. And he just sealed the game, killed the game, didn't he?
It was great to see the passion, wasn't it? Then the passion and the interaction with the fans once it got threw the ball away. You could see it was absolutely brilliant. It's what rugby league's about, really, especially at Rovers as well. There's that great interaction, isn't it, between the players and the fans. Yeah. Really take them into our heart, don't we? And it was really evident there, I thought.
You can tell he's loving it as well. He's just loving his time on the Rovers shirt, isn't he? He knows it's his swan song season. He knows he's only got so many games left to play. So he's just enjoying every single one of them in front, and to scoring a derby in front of his own fans. Well, what a way to win a game, eh?
And he's done. This isn't meant to be patronising, not to him especially in any way. And he's done really well in every game, hasn't he? You know.
Yeah. Don't believe the people who says he hasn't. Don't believe the people who says he hasn't. He's a major linchpin in Rovers' team this season. Is Jared? He really is. You don't see the way.
I think for me, what the best thing is like, I mean, there's a lot of naive people who thought he was going to come in like a JCB and just bulldoze people out the way, and
he's never been that.
He's going to knock somebody out every tackle, and he's going to do this. What he's brought is a level of consistency paired with Sue, whose game I remember from when we first signed him, and I'll admit when we first signed him, I thought, oh, is he? Because I think he'd been playing second rows. He'd been playing in between second row and prop for Newcastle. We didn't quite know. Like his game's been refined. You've got Hargreaves, who's got a great level of consistency, and then you've got Whitbread in the engine room. You've got Adley who can go between the two. Luckley comes on and then bulldozes and gives you the offload. We've got a great complement of props at the moment, and
Doro to come.
Well, Doro's come, but do you know what's been great as well? The conditioning of them players, the look, lean, fit. The look, you know, they're not coming out. Yeah, I mean, so sometimes, but bandaged up, and they look like elite athletes. And I think there's great credit to the Rovers conditioning staff, whatever they've done behind the scenes to get into this position, because they're a well-drilled unit, they're a machine, and they're so hard to stop, aren't they, Gary?
Yeah, I think what's really nice to see is when they're doing their 20, 25, 30-minute stints, they're not coming off, are they? Absolutely. You know, they've obviously put the effort in, and they are run ragged, but they're not coming off panting, hands on their thighs, like they're absolutely tired out. They're having their break and they're coming on like they've not played.
Yeah.
You know, they're coming on for that second stint and they're absolutely smashing it, aren't they?
Yeah. Right, Steve, before I bring you in for Robin's Revisited, Scott, I wanted just to what did you make of Willie Peters being on the touchline?
I don't think that's a bad thing. I think Willie knew who was in a game. He knew who was in a game, and sometimes, you know what? Sometimes the coach has to just be down there. Sometimes he has to have a figurehead on that side of the pitch. As much as all his backroom team do a fantastic job for him, you know, with Sean Kenny-Dowell and Dave Hodgson and Danny Ward and everybody, I think it's very, very important sometimes that your coach is seen, especially in a game when the going gets tough. You know, why not? Coaches always used to coach from the dugout, didn't they? They always used to back in the day. So it's only the way the game's moved on with technology and television and replays that they now get a more higher vantage view from the stand. But I don't think it's a negative. I don't think it's a negative that Willie Peters on the touchline. I'm sure he was concerned. You know, when they got to 16-14, I'm sure he's concerned. He just thought, you know what, I'll go down on the touchline. If the players see me there, I can speak to them directly. I can G them up. I can have a word in a few ears. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It won't be the first coach to do it. It won't be the last. It happens every now and then.
I think he said, didn't he? He likes to be up in the stands so he can have an overall kind of aerial view of everything that's going on. And I think he said in his post-match, I think he said something along the lines of that the message just weren't getting down. You know, there was some issue, there was some problem. So and he thought it was the right thing to do.
Well, do you know what? It's funny because there's a couple of times, aren't they? We saw the 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗀𝗃 in the last game against Wigan, where he was put out on the wing, and they wanted to take him off, and for some reason, I don't know. Did they get to the bottom of why he didn't come off? Because I don't think it was a referee in. And then we saw at Huddersfield, didn't we, where Hargreaves came on, then he went back off, and he should have stayed on, and he was pissed.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if there's a miscommunication. And hey, look, I'm just questioning, because it's when you go through such a lot. The last time 𝗀𝗧𝗏𝗂𝗧 was on the touchline was the Wigan semi-final, I think, at Doncaster. Yeah. And that was, I mean, don't get me wrong, that was desperate because we were under the pump and we needed something to turn around in that game, and it didn't go well for the Robins. But it's just interesting to see that, because that's not the norm. We're so used to seeing, well, we don't see 𝗀𝗧𝗏𝗂𝗧 until press conference after game, and you don't see him on the line. So to see that, but you know what? If that's what gets us over the line to get that victory, that's what you do, innit? And I think that's where we go back to the players about how they're conditioned. Well, I suppose coaches, they're conditioned to go, if I've got to do something to get us off that line, I'll do it by hook or by crook, and I'll fall on the sword if it don't work.
Hey, it's not surprising, is it, really, when we look at what's happening on the sidelines, that there is a bit of confusion sometimes. You know,
it's so busy, isn't it? There's just so much going on.
Bibs coming on and off, and is it the 7th interchange or the 6th, or what card have I got to carry? Is it an HIA interchange, etc., etc.? But you know, he's the coach, and he does what he wants. He does what he wants. But yeah, it's and it worked, didn't it? It worked. It was great.
Yeah, and at the moment, Scott, you can't. You know, I'm fully entrusted in 𝗀𝗧𝗏𝗂𝗧𝗏𝗏. I tell you what, if he told me to walk over them hot coals over there because it might bring us a victory, I better take my socks off, because I'm going.
Yeah, and you know, hey, we're all fans and we all have opinions, don't we? You have a lot of fans saying so-and-so should be playing, and he should be playing, and he should be playing there. Just trust him, Willie. He's never let us down yet. He's never, ever let us down yet. And all the time he's been at this club, you know, if his hand's been forced where he's had to make a decision, that's one thing. But if he's got all his players available to him and he picks the right player for that right position, let him go with it. Just trust him, because he ain't got a lot wrong, has he? In the last 3 years or so, he ain't got a lot wrong. 2 or 3 years, he hasn't.
No. Right, that was a derby victory. I mean, I'm getting sick of talking about them now because there's that many of them. I mean,
7 from 8, getting boring.
They did score a try in the first half, so they've at least have stopped some kind of record. But anyway, we've got Leeds Rhinos up next. But before we talk about that Rhinos game, we bring Steve Till in for Robins Revisited. Where are you, Steve? There you are, Steve. Welcome to the Robin Pod. How are you?
Thanks. Yeah, really good. Very happy after the weekend. Really tremendous performance. Scott, if I can, before I go on to Scott, we were talking about how Rovers just after half time, if they'd have got a try in front, they'd have gone on to greater victory. If you remember, I don't know how much it was noticed, but we had the ball, and Tyrone May showed some dissent to the referee.
Yes, yeah, he did.
And that's where it all started to go wrong. I just thought,
yeah. Bang on.
Anyway, I've thought long and hard about this Leeds. Back in the day, in fact, I'm going to go back to March the 4th, 1984. There was an absolute thriller at Headingley where the scores went backwards and forwards, and in the end finished all square, 14 each, with David Lowes and Gary Prome scoring 2 tries and John Doherty one. And I remember watching the game. I was in the South Stand at Headingley. There was just under 10,000 there. and I stood and watched it in the South Stand, and my mouth went dry watching this game because it was so exciting. No one knew which way the ball was going to go. No one knew who was going to score next, although it was only 14-14. It was an absolute thriller, so much so. Peter Wilson, who was a renowned journalist for the Daily Star, a rugby league man through and through, he described it in the next day's Daily Star as the best club game he'd ever seen. And he'd seen some games. It was such a thriller. So I looked at that, and then I thought, no, let's come a bit closer in the memory, and we'll all remember this one. The encounter in August 2013 that Rovers won 16-12 with Rhys Lovegrove going down the wing and scoring in the corner and nicking the game for Rovers. That was interesting, and it was interesting from one fact that the 2 tries scored by Leeds were scored by Callum Watkins, and he's now returned to the fold, and he'll no doubt be playing on Friday night. While one of the Rovers' tries came from Jordan Cox, God rest his soul, and the other came from, as I said, Rhys Lovegrove. So that was another thriller, and it was Craig Sandercock was the coach for the Rovers that day. But the game which kind of really stands out for me came on April Fool's Day 2016, and Rovers turned up at Headingley and gave Leeds a right shellacking. They won by 30 points to 10, led 10-0 at half-time, and it was an interesting Rovers team that took the field. 𝗕𝗂𝗃𝗃, Matty Marsh at scrum half, Graham Orme, Chris Clarkson came on as the run-out hooker with Sean Lunt on the bench, and yet it was Sean Lunt that scored 2 tries that day, with 4 others coming from Mitch Allgood, Ben Cockayne, Kieran Dixon, and a rampaging run from former Leeds favourite, now with Lee, Robbie Mulhern. I remember him going 30 yards to score the last try, and it was as though it was the parting of the waves. It was like the Red Sea parting as he went, and he was laughing his head off when he touched down. He'd just left Leeds, he joined Rovers, and the joy on his face at scoring that try was brilliant, and nothing was going to stop him. Incidentally, the last 2 matches that I've just mentioned, both refereed by Richard Silverwood. Now, if you follow Twitter or X, Richard Silverwood comes out very much as a Leeds fan, and yet he refereed both those. Officially, he's from Dewsbury, but of course he won't be following Dewsbury every week. He wants the glory, so he goes and watches Leeds. But it's interesting that he refereed both those games. He's a self-confessed Leeds fan, you know. But those 3 games stand out for me as being really exciting, good football. That first one you lads won't remember, but the last 2 you will. And I'm looking forward to this Friday. And I think we might find a stronger Leeds team than we think we're going to find. It's coming at the back of 2 hard games. And I know what Jono thinks of Leeds this season, but they're a lot better than you. Yeah, I know. I can see. But it's not going to be easy. And the bookmakers, you know, they've got Rovers, Leeds getting 2 start, so they think it's pretty even as well.
Steve, where you live, your ear is much closer to the ground to Headingley than ours is. What's the mood around that area right now about how Leeds are doing? Are they? Do you think they're doing well? Are they happy?
Yeah, I think so. I think they can see that there's a lot of effort going into the squad. They think Brad Arthur's the new, Messiah. Of course, they've been taken over.
So was Rowan Smith.
Sorry?
So was Rowan Smith.
Yeah, I know, but Brad Arthur's got a little bit more about him, I think. But I think events over the last couple of days have taken over in the city anyway with Leeds United. But there'll be a big crowd there on Friday night. I think I can see 16,000, 17,000 being there on Friday night, and it'll be a good atmosphere. Of course, we play like if we strangle them early on, they might struggle. But there's been big improvements. One player who is their equivalent, if you like, of what people think of Mikey is Connor. We all love him. Don't we?
What?
But he's playing well for them. He's leading them around the park. We've got to keep on top of him. And also James Bentley. Bentley's changed. There's been subtle changes in the way he plays, and he's not as kind of riotous as he once was. But genuinely, I believe Rovers have got it in them to win. But I look back at those matches I've just discussed, and I think something like that. That's what we want to happen on Friday night.
Steve, always, it's a pleasure, and I look forward to getting your Robins revisited next week. I totally disagree with you about Leeds, but I'm about to turn you off now. But don't worry, I won't slag you off. All right.
I'll be listening.
I know that's why I won't be. All right. Cheers, Steve. Thank you so much.
Cheers, lads.
I mean, the mad thing, Scott, when you look at Friday night, if Leeds win, they're literally 2 points behind the Robins, and they've got off to a half-decent start. I will counter that with the fact that when you look at their victories, beat Salford, beat Castleford, beat Salford, beat Huddersfield. Obviously, the spike in that run of results is the victory over Wigan, where they beat them by 2 points. But when you look at the run of victories that they have had, apart from the Wigan game, it's hardly the toughest run of fixtures in terms of where they have got the victories, is it? So they've lost to Wakefield, they've lost to Catalan, they've lost to Warrington. I'm not looking at Leeds this season going, wow, we need to be in fear of them. Other than that victory over Wigan. And I think a victory over Salford and a victory over Huddersfield, where they scored 28 points against both sides. So what? It's
And I think that victory against Wigan came after the week Horde beat Wigan in the cup, didn't it? It was the following week, and Wigan was still without Jack Field, where the French was at full back. They were without Field again, and Leeds just got over the line against Wigan. I think they probably deserved to win the game. I remember watching it, but they don't really fill me with a lot of fear. They've got a bit of strike, haven't they, out wide? That Lung looks a good winger, doesn't he? Or certainly will be a good winger, in a couple of years' time. Looks a decent kid. But, Connor, for me, blows hot and cold. If you get amongst him, you don't like. If you let him play, it can kill you, can't it? He has got.
I'll tell you what, right? This is where we are with. So the Super League Man of Steel points right now after 8 rounds of rugby. Guess who's second? Well, guess who's first place? Gary. Herman S8, yeah.
SAS
second, Jake Connor. Okay.
Jake Connor.
Based on performances against Salford, Castleford, Huddersfield. That's where he gets his victories. When he in the good games, when he come up against a decent opposition, you won't see Jake Connor.
He's one of those players, isn't he? He's one of those players who is a bit like Price, who the other lot have just signed. He has 1 or 2 good runs a game, and everybody remembers that. But nobody remembers all the back chat and all the mistakes and all the missed tackles and last man of defence and getting it wrong and stuff like that. But Connor's, if he has a good day, he's unstoppable, isn't he? you know. But it's
I
getting
don't
more.
know. I don't think he is, mate. I think he is. It's when he plays against crap teams, he does well. That's
but it's getting rarer and rarer, though, isn't it? You know, I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned at all.
I think what he has done, I think he's found his home at Headingley. You know, he's been one of these players that's been around the block a little bit, playing for loads of different clubs. He seems to have found his home at Leeds and at Headingley. He seems more settled there than he's ever been at any other club, I think. That don't make him a good player, by the way, against the big teams. But, you know, he does seem to have settled and found a home at Leeds now. So we can maybe see him staying there for a few years now, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, Scott, when you look at the Rovers lineup for next week, when we play on Friday against Leeds, obviously there's two players not playing, which is Tom Davies, Joe Burgess. Davies injured, Willie Peters confirmed, Burgess failed a HIA. So we're going to have two new wingers out on the side. Of course, Leyland, he's back now after he failed a HIE after playing for Huddersfield on loan. It's interesting, though, when you read, as we record this now, Willie Peters has done his pre-game press conference. He's not exactly bigging Leyland up to be in that playing, you know, in the squad, because he's saying about he's coming on the back of a HIA. He's a player who'll get his best rugby in 2 years, you know, next year and the year after. So you go, I don't know, that doesn't sound like.
Then he says he's recovering from an ACL. He's recovering from his ACL.
Yeah, so for me, it doesn't sound like. I mean, and I think this is what I like, Scott, probably, is that Willie Peters has got his team at a level where he goes, even though Leyland's in a Super League squad, he's not ready to play, but he can go play for Huddersfield. But he can't play for us.
Yeah, and I think that's what we've been debating about. Other players, like fans, are crying out for Leyland and Doro. Willie's not crying out for you because
it's also a bit of protection, isn't it, for the players? Those two players. Yeah, their time will come. Look, let's not big them up too much now. Let's not. I'll introduce them when I want to introduce them. You know, we're doing the right thing by them. I think it's really good coaching.
It's like
the big question is, Scott, does Lytton go at 80 minutes again?
Yeah.
Is that what
I honestly think that, let's say Leyland didn't have an HIA for the derby, I still think Jez does 80 minutes. I don't think Leyland gets on the bench, even if he's fit. I really don't. I don't think Willie sees. I think he sees Bill Leyland as a player, as we just said, for next season or the next couple of seasons. If you're going to play for 𝗀𝗃𝗃 now, you have got to be at a level where you just slot into that team and it doesn't weakness. And if that means Jez playing 80 minutes, I think Willie would rather go with that than having another player spell him. And you could spell him in the game with another player who's already on the pitch, as an example. But I think Jez does 80 minutes again on Friday. I really do.
Gary, do you think to get the best out of Jez Lytton, though, Jez Lytton shouldn't play 80 minutes?
No, I think he's proved that he can. And why not? If you can do it, look at him on Good Friday. You know, he didn't take a backward step, did he? His defence was absolutely immaculate. You know, and he's got that unpredictability, hasn't he, at the play of the ball. You don't know what he's going to do. Whether he's just going to pass it out or go for that little squirt from the behind the play of the ball. That's why I like him. He's got that unpredictability a little bit. He's real solid, isn't he? He's solid. He's solid in a different way to McAlorum is solid.
Well, I love him, and you know what? He's got an opportunity at the moment to push his way into the Ashes test at the end of the season. You know, into the squad. Now, whether he whatever his involvement is, but he's got an opportunity now to really push himself into that squad to be part of it, and what an honour that would be for him. So yeah, it's all in front of him, isn't it? And I love Jez Lytton. I put a post out on social media yesterday. I mean, what a deal to bring Hadley and Lytton over when they did. You know,
I mentioned something the other day I'm only on Facebook. I don't do the others, but I mentioned about Lytton. I think he's one of the only England hookers who don't put his arms up at every play of the ball. He just focuses on playing the ball. You know, he's not waving his arms around, you know, trying to catch the rest's attention.
Yeah.
Just gets
That's
on
why.
right.
That's why we need 𝗲𝗂𝗏𝗃 on, because that's what he does to make him.
Yeah. But how many people though, when we signed Hadley and weren't too overwhelmed about it?
Oh yeah, and look where we was at the time, Scott, as well.
No.
I mean, yeah.
But it's what a good coach turns these players into.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, you've got to have all that ability and the heart and the desire to want to be successful yourself as a player. And Dino and Jez have certainly got that. But when we signed Dino and Jez, it wasn't like we were signing absolute world-class well-beaters. No. We were signing, in theory, if we're being honest, a couple of squad players who have gone on to become major anchors in our team.
Yeah.
That's fantastic ability from them lads, but also the coaching side of it as well.
Well, I always think, you know, what was amazing about is when 𝘀𝗧𝗏𝗂𝗧 first got named head coach. And 𝘀𝗧𝗏𝗂𝗧 said, I think Dean Hadley was one of the first players that he spoke to, because he was a player that he'd identified as being integral to this side, which is amazing, isn't it? Yeah. Look what we've done over the last few years. And I think that's probably vindicates 𝘀𝗧𝗏𝗂𝗧's acumen in terms of identifying a player, skill level or ability or person-wise, what he needs in his team. And I think that's, you know, it's quite wholesome in terms of that circle, in terms of a player who might not be viewed as being the best. And
it's a bit like Moneyball, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a bit like the film Moneyball, isn't it? You go in and sign in a piece of the mechanics of the whole machine. And if every cog is doing their job, you have a perfect machine. And you need lots of different parts of that machine for it to be successful. And it's not all about. And the only reason we score the tries that we do, and Mikey can do what he does, as an example on the field, is because Dino and Jez do their job first. That's the only way it works. That's the only way it works.
Davies and Burgess, wingers so far this season, both injured. Who's playing on the wing on Friday night against Leeds?
Well, you're gonna have to put Broadbent on the wing, aren't you? On one. So
that's Broadbent's one.
And then, oh Christ! I mean,
you going for Kershaw?
Yeah, it's got to be, hasn't it? Because that's what we've got him for. You know, and now he's got an opportunity now, hasn't he? Even though it's probably only for 1 week. You know, I think Davis might be out probably a little bit longer than a week, maybe, depending on what his scan results are today. I look at that and I go, Davis isn't playing for a good few weeks. I think it's a dislocated shoulder, isn't it? So you've got to protect it, especially the way Davis plays. You've got to protect it, you know, because he doesn't take a backward step, does he?
No. And Scott, I mean, everybody questioned, didn't they, when Ryan Hall departed and we saw what he did. Davis is slotted into that role, then plays out like for like. You don't have another one who just comes in and does that mean that Rovers change their style of play now? Do we have to do something different?
Yeah, maybe
do more meters. Does the fullback, because Morg, does he have to?
I think your centres have got more responsibility now, you know, because Broadbent and Kershaw are the biggest lads, are they? I don't think they've certainly got the meter game that Tom Davis has, or even Joe Burgess has, if we're being honest. I know Tom's stats are one of the best in Super League. People don't realise that he makes his meters in other parts of the field as well, not just coming out the back. You know, he's such a strong lad. He always wins the collision. He always wins the floor. He's just a good winger.
I'll tell you what, Scott, he's fared in Super League for carries. So there's only Wellesby and Marshall who's made more carries than Davis.
Yeah.
So it's hard to replace that, isn't it?
There's your start. It's a big miss. And he's quite solid defensively as well. You know, on that side, on that right edge, he's certainly tightened us up a lot as Davis on that side defensively as well. Yeah, it's going to be a big loss.
He's going to be a big loss. I'll tell you what, Gary, what surprised me as well, if you look at players in Super League who've made the most errors, Davis and Burgess are second and third.
Errors as in with the ball, dropping the ball, errors, you mean?
Well, errors, so Tom Johnson's first with 17 errors. So errors are dropping the ball. Yeah.
And is that necessarily a bad thing? It just means...
Well, if you look at someone like Davis, you'd go, he carries the ball more than anyone. He's most likely to make more errors, isn't he? You know,
and would you know? For me, is a stat. Would one of those errors be the try didn't get?
Right, yeah, of course, he's trying to put the ball down. That's counted as an error. So it works both ways because that accounts for attacking positions as well as defensive. But Davies and Burgess are big players to replace. You know, there's not many sides who have to go into a game where you've got to replace both your wingers.
Both your wingers, yeah. I think we'll be all. Yeah, I mean, I'm a Rovers fan. Of course, I'm going to say I think we're going to be all right. Yeah,
but Jack won't let you down on the right. Broadbent won't let you down on the right. You know,
Broadbent, 𝗂𝗃𝗄𝗃, they look like the most likeliest option. Yeah. You don't have to move more.
Exactly. Maybe they're not Davies and Burgess, but both those players will do a job for you. And we might have to change how we play a little bit. Certainly coming out of our end, we might have to change how we play a bit. But Willie will have that in hand, I'm sure. You know, maybe one of the forwards has to do another carry out the end rather than it be Davies, 𝗂𝗃𝗄𝗃, Burgess, 𝗫𝗓𝗏. You know, maybe a forward can take a carry or an extra carry up or something like that. But I'm sure he'll legislate for that.
Well, that's why the interchange roster is so interesting, then, isn't it? Because honestly, if you read Willie Peters' comments about Bill Leyland, he could be and he couldn't be. If he's not in, bear in mind Jack Brown was 18th man, but that was the bench with Jack Broadbent on it. Who's coming in? Is there someone coming to that utility role? Are we going with forward? That's what's interesting for me. Leyland could be easily on the interchange bench, which leaves you with Brent Tangenauer and luckily, although
it could be in there just due to injuries. Yeah, just due to injuries, Leyland could find himself on the bench. You know, especially if he wants to go with a utility player. Like last week, it was Broadbent, but Broadbent's going to have to start now. You know, we ain't got McIlroy, so if he wants to go with a utility player, he might have to go with Leyland because I think he would be the next off the rank as a utility. You know, where he could slot into, unless he goes with Danny Richardson. But I don't see that one. I don't know.
You know, I mean, we don't know, do we? But Richardson could be on the bench, couldn't he, as that utility player? You never, you know.
Yeah. I think I do. I look at the side and you go, and like we saw against Hull, you need someone who's got the versatility to come off the bench. We can't go with Fox. So you're looking at who's the most versatile: Leyland, Richardson, and then after that, you're sort of going. Not many after that, is there?
Yeah. No, not with versatility.
Not if Broadbent started, and we all presume Broadbent will start, unless there's a curveball left field where somebody comes off. I mean, don't forget in the ranks we've got Louis Gorman, we've got Connor Barley. Yeah, the positions not necessarily what they'd be used to playing, but do we shift it around?
I don't think he'll go square pegs round holes, but I wouldn't. I think he'll go Broadbent 𝗂𝗃𝗄𝗃. But I wouldn't be surprised if, like, 𝗫𝗓𝗏 stepped out into the wing and somebody else played centre. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. And you move 𝗂𝗃𝗄𝗃 over to the right wing, maybe, and then Broadbent becomes a utility player off the bench.
Yeah.
And we saw with 𝗫𝗓𝗏 with that try against that lot, didn't we? Of course, that turn of pace where he bent Briscoe, you know, he's equally adaptable. And there's talk now of him playing his way into the Ashes. You know, we've already spoke about some players, Jez Litton, who could be in that Ashes series, could 𝗫𝗓𝗏, because he certainly started the season off like a house on fire. So
talk about it online, isn't there? There's the talk about it online is that he's kind of up there. Yeah. Well, he deserves it. He deserves it on the first 8 rounds, doesn't he?
Excellent. Right. That brings us to, we've already gone over the hour mark, which I said we won't, but here we are. So that brings us to question time. Right. Obviously, every week we ask for viewers and listeners and social media followers to submit their questions from the wacky to the wild. As ever, we've got a wide range of questions. I'll tell you what, Scott, this is one for you. Goldie, she's a good listener, and I really appreciate her input because she's a great champion of the Robin Pod. Where's everyone parking at York?
Sainsbury's. I'm trying to get my parking space. My parking space. You can get park at Sainsbury's. Parking space.
I work in the parking industry. I'm a director for a parking company.
Oh, there we go, Gary. Gary's giving us a hot. Wait there, Gary. Do you want to share this, or do you want to share it at the end?
So I just park in the park and ride and walk over.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Huh?
You don't even have to get the bus. You can
just walk over. Yeah.
There you go, Goldie. There's your hot tip. Spirit of League on X, he says, Mickey Mack said he will do 1 year and go back to France, which is massive shame as he's been pivotal. So assuming that happens, who else would you like to come in to help Jez at hooker next year? It would be ideal if Mickey could be convinced to stay another year. I mean, we sort of covered that a little bit with Bill Leyland. I think he's earmarked for that second year, isn't he?
I think that's why he's coming, Annie. On that point, I think it's really good that players have been honest up front and everybody knows what's going on, because it just stops the rumours going round, doesn't it? I think it's great.
Yeah. Scott, this is a good one. I'll let you answer it. Recent developments to Craven Park, such as Craven Street, have really helped to create an atmosphere. Are there any plans to do something similar to create an atmosphere at Craven Park West?
Don't know.
I think that's up to them to sort out, isn't it? Craven Park West.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day,
we bring the atmosphere, but I think that's for them to sort out.
Yeah, I mean, they have all that stuff outside the West End, don't they, on the park and whatever. There was some bouncy slides for kids the other day and bits and bobs, but I don't know. What we've got at Craven Street is quite unique, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, right. Let's go on to questions from... I tell you what, they're stacking up. This is why it takes so long. Right. Do you think we need to improve on short kickoffs? This is a good point. We seem to lose them all the time. I don't think we've won one this year, have we?
Massively. I commented on it on Friday as well when we lost that one. We lost the short kickoff, and I was screaming, we lose every single short kickoff. We never even seem to set up for them. And even if we do set up for it, we just lose it. And we lose it.
Do you think we're a bit naive to it?
No, I think it's one of those things that, let's take Friday, for example. I think as a fan, you kind of think it's going to happen. Can you set up for it? Because if you set up for it, they just kick it long.
And then it goes long. Yeah. I suppose stages of games as well, innit? I mean, ultimately, they're gambling. They've got some. Yeah. If you don't pay off for them, they've already lost anyway. But if they can get some out of it, it
was quite interesting that they didn't actually do it at 22-14, but they did it at 28-14, which was a bit weird.
Yeah, that was from Dean Sharkett. We're going off a bit kilter now. Luke Holroyd, in my opinion, who do we go after to replace May? In my opinion, he'll end up at West. The club will probably have someone lined up. I think we talked about this on the last Robin Pod about potential replacements. I think generally, Gary, the club will be not left waiting for Tyrone May, to the point where I think if Tyrone May's wavering, the club will make the decision for him.
Yeah, I think with that type of club now, aren't we? We don't have to wait for players anymore. Yeah. We can make the decision for them, and I think we're not scared to make that decision anymore as well.
Yeah, Ian Dixon. The academy squad, so they're doing Yorkshire, Lancashire origin. They was announced today. 0 academy players in the Yorkshire squad from Rovers. Not good reading, shows the journey we still need to travel. How's this going to affect our first team squad as the salary cap starts to bite in the years ahead? To counter that, the Rovers academy have picked up a couple of fantastic results so far this season.
Oh, yeah. You won at Wigan, didn't we?
But yeah, Wigan. And I think... I think trust the process. Jason Everton, what they're doing, would it be how it all links up? You've got to trust the process. Don't get me wrong, Scott. At some point, you know, in a salary cap game, we do need these players to come through. But I think just trust what they're doing. There's been heavy, massive investment in that side of the club.
Yeah.
I don't think having Origin players named is necessarily a sign that it's not working. I think you've got to look at results and it's a great point that Ian brings though, because he's obviously bringing it up in terms of he wants to see Rovers players performing, players from East Hull, young players from our city in the Rovers first team.
I think we
have to counteract that as well. You know, the Rovers are trying to bring in young English players as well, aren't they? Like Doro and like Noah Booth and players like that. So they are counteracting it that way. Yes, they're not coming through our system, but we are signing what hopefully will be good young English players that will slot into our team at some point. But yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, we need to have some sort of production line, you know, where we can bring our own kids through, you know, from the scholars through to the academy, you know, and hopefully onto the first team in the future.
Yeah, I think all our teams won this weekend, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And congratulations to the women's side who won their quarterfinals, going to the semi-final. Great to see them doing well. They've just started their season, so great to see them doing well. God, these questions are coming. I wish I'd have read these before I would come on. With the transfer market in full swing, what should be Rovers' main recruitment and retention focus at the moment? Starting to get worried about not doing our half-back business early. I'll answer that. I think we've said that about Tyrone Way. I've got no doubt whatsoever. Behind the scenes, Woody Peters, Paul Aiken, they will have wheels in motion. We will not get left behind because we're a well-oiled machine in terms of transfer business. And I think, Scott, you said earlier on in the Robin pod, I don't think we've got one wrong yet. You know, there's been a lot of dismay at sometimes players leaving. I tell you what, they've not gone to better things. And then the players who have come in to replace them have done better. Pat O'Connor, he says, I believe we need to see Doro play again. Would you agree? And I posted on the YouTube channel after the game, seriously, maybe rating that's about apart from SA, would we swap a player for an FC player? I don't actually think so. And also a big one, who could we possibly replace? Mayfair, good luck. That's about 20 questions in one. Doro, Gary, I think we'd all like to see him, won't we? But it's up to him to get himself in the first team.
Yeah, he's been 19th or 18th man a few times, hasn't he? And I think he's just been kept out by better players, isn't he? You know, I think we said earlier on in this podcast, didn't we, that everybody's, you know, I think somebody said all our players on Friday, apart from Morg, were 2 to 15. So it was all the first selection group. And his time will come. I think we get a bit eager as fans, don't we? And we want to see everybody given a chance. But like Scott said, Willie knows best, and his time will come. I think when his time does come, he's going to set it alight as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean on Facebook, he asks about thoughts on some of the muted amalgamations that would be inevitable for sustainability in a new NRL-backed era. We only have to look back just 25 years to see how it can save some smaller clubs. FC, Gatesville Sharks, I think he's been a bit cheeky. And Sean, if I see you tomorrow night, I'm going to pick you up on that because I think you're completely right. And I think he's been a bit cheeky because I know him. Michael Matthews, for Magic Weekend against Salford, would you play Doro, Richardson, Brown, etc., and rest players for the semi-final, of course, the week after? I don't know, Scott. I'm not even confident we're going to have a game at Magic Weekend at the moment because it's an absolute travesty, a disgrace, and it was probably shouldn't have happened, really. We've let Salford limp along for as long as we have. There's no sign that this is going to change. And I'm not even confident that Rovers will have a game against Salford because they're lurching from pillar to post at the moment, aren't they, Scott?
Yeah. But if we do, we're probably going to end up playing their academy, aren't we? I guess. So certainly a sprinkle of first teamers and a few young kids again, which I think was predominantly especially the team that sent to Catalan really wanted. They had quite a few. They had a few first teamers in there, but it was quite a few young kids as well. It's a travesty really, but they're in a mess now. The RFL, aren't they? Because they can't let Salford go to the wall because it'll default the contract with Sky Sports. So the RFL are going to have to probably pay them wage bills for the rest of the season or something just to get them through the season. But it's an absolute travesty because they're in a situation where they can't survive. Even if they don't finish bottom of the Super League, they're going to be in the Championship next year, Salford. If they survive at all, they aren't going to be in Super League. They can't be, So it should never have got to this stage. But as we know, with rugby football and rugby league in general, it's on to itself, isn't it? But it should never have ever got to this stage where, should they have even started the season, And
on a side note, great credit to Paul Rowley for managing to galvanise a side where they're at least competitive to a certain point.
I mean, the team that went to Catalan, at weekend, they were well beat, but they had a go. They stood up and they wore the badge. The lads that turned out wore the badge with pride and they had a go, but they just weren't good enough. That's going to be every game, isn't it?
Yeah, Gary, Rob Coles, he asked pineapple on pizzas, yes or no?
I think I've replied to him already. I've said yes every time.
Right, well, that's you. Anyway, Gary, I enjoyed your appearance on the Robin Pod.
See you there, Ron.
So we'll, if anyone else wants to join us on the Robin Pod at any future point, make sure you DM. Bazza Kingston, he's been on the Robin Pod a while, a couple of times now. He was a new recruit. Based on current form, do you think we can go all the way and win silverware? Bazza, or do you feel we need improvement? Yes, if you can improve. I'll give you Willie Peters' answer. There'd probably be, we never look to stop improving. If players are available, we'll look to sign them, as long as that betters the group. And do you think we can go away and win silverware? Yeah, but that depends on X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah. So I think we can. Ask me again in October. And we'll see what
we have to. We have to.
I think
it's the next step. We have to. We need to get that monkey off our back. We need to pick some silverware because it's all we're lacking at the moment. Get one of them.
Yeah,
Adam, go on, Gary.
I was going to say, as fans, I think it's in our heads that we're going to. I think what we've got to not do is, if we don't, is not get downhearted and dejected about it. It's just the journey, innit? Look where we've come from. Look where we are. It's absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic. So keep going. Keep going. We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah. Adam on Facebook, he has some speculation that Rover's going to Vegas. He's planning on going, but he needs to get his wife's approval. Do you think 𝗀𝗂𝗃 will be a team selected, and how many would we take? I think if you look at the local media, Rovers are pretty much in the driving seat to be there. How many would we take? Great question. It's a good one, isn't it? Because
it's a long drive, isn't it? It's a long drive.
A long drive, yeah. And as much as many people will want to be there, East Hull's not the most affluent.
It's a hell of a cost.
2, 3, 4 grand, let alone if your missus supports them, your kids support them, and you all. So it's a big question mark on that, isn't it? But I think 𝗀𝗂𝗃, if they want to continue their ascent, these are the games we need to be playing in. So regardless of that, I think Rovers, if they've got the opportunity to be there, they will be there. Rich Robbo, he says, I've been pleasantly surprised with 𝗬𝗏𝗏, can really cut teams apart, but his bravery at the back and solidity under the bomb is something that's hard to teach. Could he be the extra spark to take us to silverware? That's the big questions at the moment, isn't it? About silverware. There's no doubt though that 𝗬𝗏𝗏's been a fantastic addition to the side.
I think I think if you've sorry, Scott, I keep starting my responses before you. I think if you've got even when you're playing, even when you're playing in your 20s, as amateurs, like most of us have probably done, having a good fullback gives you that real confidence, doesn't it? And that progresses into a pro team, I would imagine. So to answer the question from my perspective, yes, I think he is that little bit of extra spark. Yeah.
I tell you what, Scott, like you said, I think when we're talking about the whole game, he has got that rawness. I suppose for me, the only worry I've got is that pass he gave out against Wigan right at the end.
Yeah.
You know,
But
I think
every player's got an error in them under pressure, haven't they? You know, I mean, we were chasing the game then against Wigan, weren't we? It was just trying to put something on it. It never worked. But if you look at him on Friday, he was clean as a whistle. Took every ball. You know, he returns well. He's not the biggest kid either, is he? He's not very big. He's only a little lad. You know, one of my FC mates says he's nowhere near as good as Evells. Nowhere near as good. You've lost a better player in Evells. Age-wise, that suggests that that's not bagging Niall, but Niall's 32, 33. 𝗕𝘂𝗹𝗃𝗁 24, 25. So he's got all his best years ahead of him, hasn't he, as well? And you mentioned his rawness there, John. Yeah, he's still learning the game to a certain extent, you know. But I think he's a better acquisition long term, without a shadow of a doubt.
No, and the circumstances around the Evel's departure are
totally different.
Yeah. Pat on Instagram, are the club teasing us with pics of some Brad Schneider on social media? Of course, they've advertised the Leeds game tickets still available. Brad Schneider, do you reckon he's on the horizon for the Rovers?
They've been talking about it, haven't they? There've been a few rumours, but he's doing really well. So I don't think I think it's just rumours, isn't it? You know, I don't think he's the first choice over there now.
I think he was on the bench at weekend, wasn't he? He was on the bench, I think. But he's getting in the 17. He's getting in there 17. So, yeah, I don't know. Would he be good enough to replace Tyrone May? Or are we looking for somebody with a bit more X factor than Brad? Now that's not no disrespect to Brad, but are we looking for somebody with a bit more X factor? Only the club will know that.
Well, at the moment, I think where the Robins are, we're in the market where it could be 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗀, it could be Nathan Cleary, it could be Brad Schneider. I think it could be any one of. I'll tell you what. Let me look at the Harlem Globetrotters. We could have one of them as well. You know. But seriously, I do think. Look, we're in a market which is above where we've been before. Who knows where that'll But I think there'll be irons in the fire, like we've already mentioned, to say whether it's Brad Schneider, whoever it'll be, whether it's Tyrone.
The Adam Reynolds rumour won't go away, will it? The Adam Reynolds rumour won't go away. And I noticed that he liked to comment. Somebody put on social media last week, you know, when he's at the Rovers next season, he's partnering Mikey Lewis. You'll see some real fire in the halves, and he liked it, did Adam Reynolds. So that got a few tongues wagging, I think. So
well, yeah. And if you follow his Instagram, he suddenly started following Rovers, Mikey Lewis, and
we got room as well, because aren't Hicko and Tanganoa coming off salary cap next year? I think.
Well, it should be if the new rules that was talked about 2 years ago about salary exemption, where the players been over here residency for 5 years, they come off quota, but there's nothing confirmed in that yet, because it'd be Martin and Tanganoa would come off the bench based on, off the salary cap. Last question, because I'm ready for bed now. And that's not because you, Gary.
That's fine, mate. I have that effect on loads of people, don't worry.
Wanting to go to bed? Right, Jules, I missed a question last week on Instagram, and I promised I'd read her next one. So she said, why are so many comments, well, it says log, but why were so many commentators and journalists all over FC at the weekend? We won. And I suppose that's the point. There was a lot of smoke blown up their ass. Ultimately, it's the result that counts.
It's because they nearly got there. They did win. Just so we know, just to confirm to any FC fans watching, you didn't win, you know. But
they did deserve a bit of credit. The way they played with 12 men, they deserved a bit of credit. But at the end of the day, you know, we're nearly this and we're nearly that. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. You know. And the least you expect, regardless whether you're playing with 13 men, 12 men, or 9 men, is absolute heart and desire for the badge, you know, and that's what they gave. And that's what they're getting paid to do. So they didn't win, we did.
I'll tell you what, we could have recorded this podcast 5 years ago, and if the scoreline would have been flipped round and we'd have lost, we'd have been going, and this is how the club's changed, how our mentality changed. Great performance. We're so proud of them. They gave everything, blah, blah, blah. and then you go, yeah, but we lost.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality shift of where we are now. And it's quite different to see it reversed. I mean, you know, our season hinged on these derby results, really. But I suppose it's just in the city of Hull, that's how things are reversed now, the way we look at it. So
I think 𝗀𝗂𝗽𝗃𝗃 does that really well. He doesn't get too wound up in it all, does he? You know, for him, it's just another 2 points. But for everybody around him, it's the derby. But for him, it's just and he kind of that transfers to the team as well. I think a little bit.
Yeah, until he ends up on the touchline.
Yeah, true. Until he comes down with his shirt untucked.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. There you go. Well, Scott, we've done well to keep it within the hour.
Yeah, fantastic. We're nearly there again.
So anyone who was watching this and listening to it on podcast, I said to Scott and Gary before we started recording, there's only the derby to speak, and then we've got Leeds, and that's about it. There's not much really else to talk about. So it'll probably be about an hour at tops. Here we are. So I appreciate everyone who's kept on with it, kept listening, kept watching. We do appreciate your efforts, and hopefully you found it engaging. Of course, like I've said, like Gary is, like Scott was, always looking for new people to come on the Robin Pod. And before we finish, Scott, you looking forward to Leeds?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we do our job, we'll have enough to beat them. You know, but that's, as you said, that's where we're at now. We are expecting to go into every game and win it. You know, whereas a few years ago you'd have gone, "Oh, Leeds away, tough game. We can afford to lose that one as long as we win the next one." But now Rovers are going out there to win every single game. Every single game. We're a different animal now. We're a different machine. Yeah, we're going to have to cover the injuries, especially on the wings. But I think we should have enough to beat them. But I think Leeds will. And you know, we're a target now, aren't we? Teams want to beat us. We're one of the big boys now. So Leeds want to turn us over. You know, so we're not little old OKR anymore. We're one of the major challenges, and teams want to beat us. So we have to be at the very, very top of our game every week we play now.
Yeah, Gary, thank you so much for joining us as a debutant. I'll send out your Robin Pod heritage number very soon. So you
I'm still waiting for mine, Gary. So don't bank on it.
You know what Royal Mail's like. Yeah, Gary. No, I hope you enjoyed it, mate. I look forward to getting you back on the Robin Pod. If you go into the game on Friday night to Headingley, as ever, make sure you are loud and proud and live, loud, love, laugh. Bloody hell! That's how tired I am, Scott. I'm struggling to get my words out now.
Get yourself to bed, kid.
Live, love, laugh, and be happy.
Singing a song when the red robin comes bob bob bobbing. When the red robin comes bob bob bobbing. When the red robin comes bob bob bobbing along.
The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are reputable East Hull-based car specialists and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members.